Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Force Strategy Gaming. How's everybody doing today? Today we're going to be taking a look at a Zerg strategy. I love how I asked you how you're doing. I didn't even give you time to respond. What a rude jerk. So yes, we're going to be looking at a Zerg strategy today. This will be a ZvP strategy, so specifically slated for Protoss opponents. We're going to be looking at going for kind of a heavy marine Baneling build as your general overall unit composition, and that's it. We're not talking Speedling, Baneling, Muta. We're not talking Roach, Hydra, Infestor, Corruptor, Broodlord. We are just talking Speedlings and Banelings, and that is it. And then utilizing the Overlord to be able to drop on top of your opponent's head and just cause for some massive devastation. One of the major issues, heavy Speedlings do very well. Two of the major issues are dealing with wall-offs and force fields, and then also dealing with Colossus. Well, as it so has it, being able to drop Banelings on top of the enemy opposition, on top of the Colossus, and on top of any possible block-offs, any wall-offs, bypasses any of those issues that the Speedlings alone have. So then you'll have just your regular old upgraded Speedlings, Cracklings even later in the game with their adrenal glands and metabolic boost against just that regular Protoss army, and at that point you'll actually be in a pretty good position if you can again bypass force fields, bypass wall-offs, and deal with Colossus while dropping those Banelings. So yes, this can be very effective. We will also be taking a look at the specific scouting and precisely what Morrow does in this game. And yes, this is the player that we're going to be focusing on here, Morrow. So we're on Crevasse, and you know, given the fact that it's such a large map, and also given the fact that it has a natural expansion or a back base expansion right inside of the main, it is very likely that a Protoss opponent will do something like Cruncher did here, which was a Forge Fast expand. And actually Morrow, expecting that, primed himself to go for a quick third base, and as you can see right now, he has just placed that down right now. So I'm going to just go over the build order that was used. It was 14 pool into 15 hatch, and then 18 supplies when that first queen started building. Scouting out that Forge Fast expand with both the Drone Scout and the Overlord, he then decided, alright, time to drop that next base, and this next base came actually at 25 supply, and then shortly after that, the first Extractor came up, and you of course want to saturate that. This is going to allow you to start getting your upgrades, start Lair tech, start metabolic boost, whatever you deem fit. Now keep in mind, there are a few things going on. Let me pause here momentarily. A Forge Fast expand typically leads into one of a few things. You either see gateway heavy pushes, maybe like a 6 or 7 gate level 1 upgrade push. Sometimes you'll see double Stargate opening with Void Rays and Phoenixes. That's another option as well. And then also there's a possibility that they're going to be hiding their tech because, well, they have a great opportunity to do so. So at this point in the game, you'll be relying heavily on secondary scouting. Now we can see right now, Morrow was able to sit inside the main base because there of course were no stalkers for quite some time, but as soon as the Cybernetics Core was just about to finish, he started to pull the Overlord out of the base, and he will be hiding this here for a secondary scout in just a few minutes. Now I will tell you, it won't hurt as well to maybe even bring an additional Overlord, say that he camped one over here, to get a secondary scout in another position as well, because the main goal of the scouting beyond this first Zergling and the first drone and then the Overlord inside the main is to find what the tech choice is, what his path is going to be, what his decision making will be, because that will tell you precisely what you need to do. Now in terms of any additional things that were dropped, we saw this Evolution Chamber got dropped at 42 supply, and then the secondary scouting will be coming in just one moment. You can see unfortunately dealing with the Stalker at the time, but he can actually pull back with that Overlord no problem. So at this point in the game, the Protoss player is walled in. You're doing a good job of scouting, grabbing Xel'Naga towers, consistently going back to the front of the base every 30 seconds to a minute to see if he's trying to break this down and getting ready to push, and then getting ready to move in with that secondary Overlord scout. Now, as I mentioned prior, we will be going just Speedling Baneling, so it is going to be absolutely crucial that you get the Carapace and the melee attack upgrades, and you need to do this because just with the Speedlings and Banelings, they can be fairly fragile, so those upgrades become ever so important. As you can see right there, Morrow peeking in the front to again check if he had destroyed that wall, if Cruncher was looking to make any sort of a push right now. And here comes that secondary scouting, so important. The Overlord moving on through, catching this Twilight Council, and immediately the concern from Morrow is a few things. He could be worried about Blink Stalkers. That's obviously a possibility, and you can see actually with that Chrono Boost, he knows that's coming. But the other concern too is that when you see a Twilight Council, you have to be really concerned about Dark Templar, and we're going to see immediately after seeing that, Morrow is preparing, dropping a few Spore Crawlers, one there in the front, and then I'm going to inspect one or two at these additional bases as well. Although, in all honesty, this is actually perfect. I didn't even think about it. With this one right here, he will see if any DT try to stream into the main base. So that makes it so that he doesn't necessarily need Spore Crawlers over here. And if he sees DT coming, then he gets an Overseer, and he is pretty much all set. So up until this point, we are about 8 minutes and 45 seconds into the game. Up until this point, he did not have a lot of Zerglings. You can see just right now building those offensive units. He has been concentrating solely on droning up, and this is exactly what you can do with consistent scouting. And if you see that a push isn't coming, work very hard on your economy. And right now Morrow is in a very strong economic position. Taking a look here at the income tab, we can see the big advantage going to Morrow right now. He is the red bar there, so certainly in the lead against his opponent Cruncher, and this is solely because of his scouting and the ability to see the fact that no aggression was coming, so he could drone up. But now that he sees, okay, I saw that research was coming out of here, that is likely to be Blink. I'm also concerned about the possibility of DT. It's time to get units. So now that he's got a strong economy, now that he's worried about a push, he will finally start to work on his offensive units. We also have the Banelings Nest coming out, and let me get this timing here. 64 supplies actually when the Lair started, so just droning, Lair, then massing up Zerglings after that, and then 70 supplies when the Baneling Nest came out. Now we can see the Lair is finished right now, and we're going to be getting those upgrades, both the speed and the carrying for those Overlords, because one of the primary goals in this strategy, or one of the primary aspects of it, is going to be using those Banelings and dropping them on the main army and dropping them on walls. So as you can see, again, with that properly placed Spore Crawler, he sees the DT moving into his main, so now he knows time to get an Overseer, chase down those DT, and deal with those as much as possible. Just try to keep your workers alive. Putting your workers on stop command here in front of the Queen makes it kind of bugs out the attacking AI of those units, and they have to completely bypass those workers, and they actually won't end up attacking them. It's pretty interesting, actually. So you can see right now, dealing with the DT because of that Overseer, and all he really had to invest in was that one Spore Crawler. And now that he's got Overseer in play, doesn't really need to worry too much about that. So now here comes the bulk of the army. Speedlings, lots of Banelings as well. The speed and the carrying for those Overlords is just about finished, and then at that point, basically what's going to happen is he will start taking the offensive. So a couple of things that you want to consider here. Yes, this particular tactic will be very strong for engaging the Protoss army, but also you can use it for harassing purposes. And what we will see Morrow do in this game is he will actually use the fact that he's got the speed and the carrying for those Banelings to drop inside the resource line. And that's, of course, going to be a very, very strong tactic and something you can certainly do once you've set yourself up in this position. So we'll see Morrow do that in just one moment. We can see the Vengeful Sacks just about to finish getting out a few more Banelings right now as well, spreading up that creep. And then we'll also talk for a moment here. We can see the fact that Cruncher has expanded. And I realize, as always, this is something that I've continuously mentioned throughout various strategy videos. Every time you see an expansion, you have one of two choices. You either expand yourself as a Zerg player to one-up your Protoss or Terran opponent, or you try to do severe damage. And what we will see Morrow do is opt to not expand, stick on the 3 bases, but just try to do devastating amounts of damage. And it does end up working, as we'll see here in just one moment. So here we go. We can see the 3-prong dropped right now going down. Morrow trying to drop here first. Unfortunately, that gets taken out, but then he also has this Overlord drop over here going in the natural, and then an Overlord drop attempting to go in the main. But as you can see, Cruncher was actually well prepared for this and was able to pull away and took pretty much no damage here. Again, you can see trying to move down, but unfortunately, no damage is being dealt, so unfortunately unsuccessful for Morrow, but it was a good idea, it was a good tactic, and it very well could have done a lot of damage. You know, in your games, maybe your opponent won't necessarily be prepared for that, as Cruncher was. Cruncher is a top-level player, so he certainly knows what he's doing. Again, we can see right now, still hasn't expanded. Morrow just massing up his units. He has been working very, very hard at those upgrades. We can see he's got the level 2 Carapace and the level 2 melee attack coming up. Also starting to get that infestation pit right around now. To start up to Hive Tech will be a good idea as well. So here comes the engagement that I talked about. Again, a major concern. Realize, again, let's pause momentarily. He has got just Banelings and just Speedlings. So how am I going to deal with a wall off of any sort? How am I going to deal with force fields? Well, you send in those Banelings first. You drop right on top of the wall. You drop right on top of any sentries if they are there. And then you send in your Speedlings. And look at how effective this is going to be. Just completely devastating the wall, mopping up those Stalkers, and just very, very strong push here. Cruncher is in the position right now where he's really got no chance to save this base. That will get taken care of. Unfortunately, DT here in the expansion for Morrow, but all Morrow really needs to do is send a couple of Zerglings over there, and that is all set. So taking out this expansion, big victory for Morrow. At this point, you know, he just needs to defend himself from this little DT harassment and then continue up what he's doing. And again, as you saw how effective that was, we had a photon cannon wall, we had a ton of stalkers sitting behind it, a couple of zealots as well, and just because of the dropping there with those overlords and banelings, he was able to completely mop that up. And we're going to see the same thing happen right now, pushing in the front wall. Again, the sentries concerning because of possible force fields, but the banelings dropping right on top of everything. And look at that, just completely mopping it up, and that allows, of course, those speedlings to get right inside of the main base. And as you know, if speedlings are inside of the main base of a Terran or Protoss player, it's pretty much GG. The amount of damage that they can do is pretty devastating. So let's consider a few things. I'm going to see various comments in the description. People will say, what if he went air? Speedlings and banelings don't do anything against it. What if he had Colossus? Well, Colossus will be taken care of just from the dropping. This works very effectively on that. You drop those banelings right on top of those Colossus and those sentries if he has kind of that Protoss death ball, and then your speedlings can mop up everything else. But obviously, if he went Phoenixes and if he went Void Rays, this general unit composition would not work. Let's be realistic here. That's kind of stupid to even mention that, but I guarantee you people will. The idea, of course, in StarCraft is that you always scout and you always adapt based on what your opponent's doing. So if you did see air, there are several things you can do. You can, of course, drop a Hydra Den. You can drop a Spire. Both of those will be effective as anti-air measures. Also, getting an infestation pit. Oh my gosh, fungal growth is unreal. So effective against Protoss air. The Phoenixes and the Void Rays, fungal growth does very well against those. So even just getting that, just continuing up that general Speedling Baneling unit composition, we saw how effective it can be in this particular match, but then throwing some infestors in the mix as well, then you are all set at dealing with any type of air harassment. But like I said, you could also throw down a Hydra Den if need be. We saw again that decision making from Morrow going for just trying to take out the expansion rather than getting his getting his fourth. We can obviously see now he is going for a fourth, but initially once he saw that third expansion for Crunchy, he decided, I'm going to stay on 3, I'm going to mass up a lot of Speedlings and Banelings, I'm going to do that drop, that Doom's drop right on the third, and you saw how quickly and easily Morrow was able to take it out. So let me go over the build order that was used in this particular matchup. Realize, as always, it changes based on scouting, based on the game, based on what's happening. There's always ifs, ands, and buts to anything in this game. Just realize you always need to scout and adapt to your opponent. In this game, though, we saw a 14 pool and 15 hatch, and then scouting out that Forge Fast expand, he quickly went for that third expansion at 25 supply. The Extractor came down right after that at 25 supply as well, getting that nice and saturated, and then the Evolution Chamber came up at 42. So with that saturation of this one Extractor, he was able to get the metabolic boost. He was starting to get those upgrades. Of course, realize how effective and how important it is to get those upgrades. I would suggest against a Protoss player starting with the Carapace level 1. That will make it so that your Zerglings are much more resilient against early game Zealots, and that certainly helps quite a bit. And then at this point, secondary scouting happened with the Overlord that was tucked right up in this position, spotting that Twilight Council. Two big concerns. DT as a possibility made it so that he dropped one Spore Crawler, and then also having to deal with the possibility of Blink Stalkers. Speedlings can actually do pretty well, and the Banelings can do well against that as well. All right, so 64 supply is when the Lair came up, and then 70 supply was when the Banelings Nest come up. And then, of course, getting additional Extractors at all of your expansions, you will need quite a bit of Espion. We can see he actually hasn't gotten this one, but you will need quite a bit of Espion for being so Baneling heavy. And then starting the upgrades for those Overlords as soon as your Lair finishes. You want to get the speed and the carrying for those Overlords. And again, we saw how very effective that dropping can be in both engagements and dealing with any sort of wall lofts. This cannon wall right here was completely mopped up. So thank you guys so much for watching. Hopefully you have enjoyed this strategy video. As always, guys, if you like the content, please subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching, guys. Keep watching and keep owning.